Okay. So we're in chapter 5, text 5 of Bhagavad Gita. So here, the translation says, one who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be one and the same, on the same level, sees things as they are. So as we say Bhagavad Gita, as it is, so as they are. So seeing things as it is. And so that means basically seeing the real picture without illusion, because bhakti is something that includes everything, right? So there's karma yoga, there's jnana yoga, there's ashtanga yoga, and there's bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga is something that includes everything in it. So analytical study of scriptures or of the world is also included within bhakti. So the purport says the real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. So we don't philosophize just for the sake of speculating and arguing. Uh, that's what munis do by definition. But we philosophize because we want to know the purpose of life. So there's a goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by the two processes. By Sankhya philosophy research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the supreme spirit whole. Consequently, the spirit soul has nothing to do with the material world. His action must be in some relation with the supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter, and in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. So, Sankhya philosophy, you realize you're not this, you're not this, you're not that, you're not this body, you're not that, etc., etc., and you detach yourself from all that material stuff. And in the bhakti process, you attach yourself to Krishna. Now, the outcome of attaching to Krishna is you naturally get detached from matter because you lose taste for matter. When you are in bhakti, when you get a spiritual taste, you lose taste for matter. For example, just like I like to give the example of gulab jamun. When you have gulab jamun in your mouth, it is so sugary sweet that after that, if you put potato chips, you won't be able to taste the potato chips because your mouth is filled with sugary gulab jamun, right? Or sugary rosy gulab jamun. So the point is that when you taste something up there, your lower tastes go away. So like in chapter 2, Krishna says that by acquiring higher taste, you conquer over lower tastes. So one is attached to meat eating, let's say. I was, right? Um, so it's not like you have to try very hard to give up meat eating. You just have to start eating more and more prashadam. And the more and more prashadam you eat, the more your consciousness rises, and suddenly you start realizing, oh my God, I am eating another living, breathing sentient being. This is not right. And slowly you're starting developing a taste for prashadam and distaste for meat. And slowly you evolve into something where you lose completely the taste for uh, things that are not favorable or compassionate, not favorable towards Krishna consciousness. So the higher taste conquers over lower taste. So similarly with the bhakti, the process is attach yourself to Krishna, and when you attach to Krishna, automatically you're detached from matter. You don't have to go to the caves in the Himalayas and meditate and clench your teeth and be like, oh, this is all Maya and I am going to be detached. You don't have to do all of that. You just attach yourself to Krishna, and not naturally other things leave. Srila Prabhupada has a very beautiful way of describing this. He says that Krishna is supremely pure. Wherever you put Krishna, that becomes purified. Krishna never becomes impure. So similarly, just like sunlight it's a purifying effect. So sunlight falls on seawater, salt water, it becomes distilled water. Sunlight falls on urine, it becomes distilled water. Sunlight falls on a puddle, it becomes distilled water. So sunlight, wherever it falls, sunlight doesn't get contaminated, but the water that it falls on becomes distilled. So similarly, Krishna, wherever you bring Krishna in the picture, Krishna doesn't get contaminated. Krishna has that purifying effect that wherever you put in, that gets contaminated. So, sorry, that gets purified. I'm sorry. That's my contaminated mind that said that. That gets purified wherever Krishna is present. So, our goal is to include Krishna in our life, whether it's food, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's what we hear, what we speak, what we see, just bringing Krishna in the picture, and thereby our life becomes, slowly evolved into devotion and detached from matter. So the Sankhya process teaches us detachment, and the Bhakti process teaches us attachment towards Krishna, which leads to detachment from matter. Any questions so far? Nothing, anything not clear? Okay, we'll move to the next verse. Sannyasas mahabaho dukham apatum yogataha yoga yukto munir brahma na chirena ti gacchati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. So this is Krishna's own words, right? Many people think there is something called the neti neti principle. So I don't want to get into controversy, but anyway, there are certain monks who are into that philosophy of neti neti, and you can Wikipedia it. Don't get into it. Point is, they say not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, and they reject everything, even sometimes their own clothes. And they think that by rejecting everything, the only thing that will be left is God. And that's not necessarily the way to do it. And Krishna is saying it, that merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in devotional service. So just renouncing everything doesn't mean you're spiritual. You have to engage in your loving devotional service towards Krishna, even if it is not loving, but you have to engage in spiritual activities to be spiritual. You cannot just detach from matter or material activities and think, oh, now I'm spiritual. Because guess what? Even if you try to detach from everything, your mind is always there. You might be sitting in a cave in the Himalayas, but your mind might be thinking, oh, my friends in my hometown are partying, and look at me, I am here in a cave. Oh, that favorite food, oh, that Bollywood song, oh, this, oh, that, right? The mind will never shut up. So the point is, no matter how much you try to detach yourself, no matter how much you try to renounce material activities, you'll never be able to renounce the mind. And so the mind will always be playing those records, and you'll soon go back to material activity. That's why you see in certain political parties, sannyasis who are supposed to have given up everything, they go back into politics, right? We have chief minister as a sannyasi. We have many politicians who are members of parliament as a sannyasi. What is happening is they've renounced everything, but they're renouncing everything is boring. And people need engagement. You're a human being after all. You need engagement. So in that process of neti, giving up, you finally realize, oh my God, what do I do? And then think, oh, okay, serving the nation or serving a political party is something I can do, right? But that is also attachment. Power, politics, name, fame, game, all of that. A sannyasi is not supposed to run for elections. A sannyasi is not supposed to be in a power of a kshatriya position. Chief minister or any politician is a kshatriya position. But when you are a Mayavadi sannyasi, you have nothing else to do because you have renounced everything, you're bored, and you go into some kind of activity in the garb of social activity or feeding the poor or running for office or whatever it is. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just not spiritual, right? So for example, Swami Vivekananda, a lot of freedom fighters felt inspired by Swami Vivekananda, and he was a great person, right? There's no question about him. He's a great person. But if you look at it, Swami Vivekananda wasn't necessarily a bhakti yogi, not a spiritual person. He was a great person in terms of the freedom movement, in terms of societal ways. He was a social revolutionary. All of that are great titles, but there's a difference. All of those things are material. All of those things are material because they're dealing with the body. When you're dealing with society or country or nation or whatever it is, a devotee doesn't see national boundaries. A devotee doesn't see skin color. A devotee doesn't see caste. A devotee doesn't see gender. A devotee doesn't see any speciesism. There is no racism. There is no speciesism. There is no any distinction. They see the soul because that's spiritual. That's part and parcel of God. That's the difference, right? So one very tiny difference between what looks like spiritual and what is spiritual. What is spiritual has the spiritual element, God consciousness, soul, seeing the soul rather than the body or the mind or anything else, right? And what looks like spirituality with all the beard and all the turban and the saffron and all of that might still not be spiritual because it's still dealing with bodily conception of life, material conceptions of life. Now, I'm not saying you cannot serve the needy, feed the hungry, do all the wonderful things, right? Can a devotee run for office, be a politician? Absolutely. But be a devotee first, because otherwise Maya will have such a great time with you. She will take you for a toss and you'll think you're such a great devotee, but you're not. You're just stuck in matter. The point is, first be spiritual, be very clear of what matters, who you are. You're not a man, a woman, a rich, poor, educated, uneducated. You're part and parcel of Krishna. Once that is clear, then with that clear understanding that I am part and parcel of Krishna, as my goal in life is to, however you want to serve Krishna, right? And then with that goal in mind, then you take whatever vehicles you want to use, whether it's business, politics, scientific research, job, whatever it might be. We all have our different journeys, but our journey should be set based on the destination. So the destination has to be very, very clear, right? So merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person is engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. A thoughtful person, it takes one to be thoughtful. What am I doing? Questioning oneself. Why am I doing this? That's thoughtful, right? What am I doing? Why am I doing? And who is it for? Sometimes things can be very ritualistic, where we're just chanting the mantras and doing this and doing that and taking a bath and this, that. And we're doing this mindlessly because we're used to being in the mechanistic way of life. But it's important to know, why am I doing it? Pause for a second. Oh, this is for the pleasure of Krishna. Do I have that consciousness that this is for the pleasure of Krishna? Can I do something better to please Krishna? Maybe I'm offering fruits to Krishna. Can I make the fruit arrangement in such a beautiful way that makes Krishna happy, right? That is, oh, it's arranged in so beautiful way. Maybe I'm offering flowers, or maybe I'm doing my job. Can I do it better with Krishna consciousness in mind, right? So thoughtfulness is very important. Once you're thoughtful, then your devotional activity, that means Krishna consciousness, right? So you can be working, you can be coding, you can be fighting a war like Arjuna, you can be doing anything. But with Krishna consciousness, when you do it, then you can very quickly achieve Krishna. You can very quickly attain God consciousness and be in Krishna's association, right? A bhakti yogi. Any questions? Okay, there's one chat thing. So is it true that he already predicted his death? I don't know. Not sure.
Good evening, sir. I have a question.
Yes, Navneeta.
So, sometimes due to a few situations, we will be unable to serve Krishna, and we find so many obstacles in our way to serve Krishna. So, what to do then? How to get over such kind of situations?
What would be one obstacle that you're facing?
So sometimes our family would restrict us not to do certain things, and also what can I say?
Okay,
Uh,
let's talk about family. What would your family not let you do?
um Service.
Okay.
Me getting engaged in service activities.
For example,
For example, social activities. I mean, getting involved in group and doing such volunteering things or whatever.
okay.
Due
So
to
one of the
these
things
situations.
you have to understand is you have to grow up, Navneeta. You are no more a teenager; you are an adult. And there are, of course, if you're living with your parents in their parents' house, there are certain things you have to follow that come back home at certain time. And I understand being a woman is also difficult because there are certain more restrictions that a woman has to face than men. I understand all of that. But at the same time, you need to understand that you need to explain, hey, you know what, this is important to me. I'm an adult and this motivates me. The benefits of doing service is I'm a happier person. Do you want to see your daughter happy? Do you want to see your daughter motivated? Do you want to see your daughter productive? Then allow me to do this little service that I want to do, right? And thereby, so you be clear why you're doing what you're doing. When you're clear why you're doing what you're doing, then you can explain to your parents also. If they disagree or agree, it's up to them. But as a responsible daughter, you can explain to them, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue doing it. And I really hope and appreciate that if you support me rather than restrict me, because this makes me happy. I'm not going and smoking. I'm not going and creating habits that can harm my body or mind. I'm doing productive things for myself and for society. So kindly allow me to do so. If you can easily showcase the benefits, then any logical parents would allow, I hope. Does that help, Navneeta?
Mhm.
No?
But I tried explaining them. If I'm not, can I share this? If that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried explaining them why am I doing what I'm, uh, you know, able to get when I do that. I tried all the ways, but there came a situation where everything turned topsy turvy, and few situations happened. So that itself created an impression in their mind that because of this, that has happened. So since from then onwards, they are not allowing me to get into social activities or do service like that.
So don't ask for permission, Navneeta. You are an adult, like I said, and I know you're working, you're earning a salary, and you're an independent woman, and you want to be a life coach, motivational speaker, all of that stuff. That requires you to be a fighter. That requires also you for you to be a confident person.
Mhm.
So you need to stand up to your parents and be like, you know what? I'm not asking for your permission, but as a good daughter, I'm letting you know this is why I do what I do, and I will continue to do so. I don't need permission, but I would love for you to allow me or bless me so I can do that with your blessings and not against your wishes. So kindly understand where I'm coming from. I know what is good for me. If it is not good for me, allow me the freedom to figure that out and learn a life lesson. But at least allow me that freedom rather than restricting me. But again, you don't need anybody's permission, Navneeta, to do what you're doing or do what you want to do. Not even when you're married, you don't need your husband's permission. We don't live in that era. That doesn't mean you're arrogant, but all it means is act like an adult. Stand up for your rights and be polite. That doesn't stand up, being a feminist doesn't mean you have to beat people with a hammer. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is be an independent woman and let your parents know that there are certain boundaries that you will not cross, and there are certain boundaries they should not cross. As an adult woman, they should respect your boundaries and you will respect their boundaries, and thereby both parties can have a respectful relationship where they don't step into each other's toes. But for that to happen, Avnita, you have to have a little courage, and sometimes it might require you to kind of stand up and fight for your belief system. It's not easy sometimes, right? Or a lot of times. I did parents, the mindset is they feel they own you, and that is something that they need time to kind of get over. Or they sometimes want their dreams to come true through their kids, and that might or might not happen, and people need to understand that. So you need to have good communication in a way that they understand, rather than confronting, communicate. Okay, Kosh, does it help, Navneeta?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, good. And I'm glad you asked question. Kaushal is asking, sir, suppose I am coding or doing any software related work. How can I do with Krishna consciousness? Well, you're doing the coding not because, for frivolous purposes. You're doing it because you're getting paid to do it. And with that money, you're going to buy fruits, vegetables, various things that you're going to offer to Krishna anyway. So just like when there's a fire sacrifice, there's a yajna. In the yajna, what goes? Ghee, wood, all of that, right? But somebody went to the shopping mall or shop to get the wood, to get the ghee, to get the flowers. So that is also part of the yajna. So similarly, when you're doing the software work, it is part of the yajna. You're doing that service so you get paid well, so you can do services for Krishna, sustain your life, have Krishna Prasadam, live in Krishna's house, drive Krishna's car, and more money, you can do better service, right? So you can code better software. So your consciousness is that let me do this service so nicely that it creates an example that this is what a Krishna devotee looks like, A. B, it also enhances my career in such a way that I can serve Krishna better. So this is a means to an end. Does it help, Kaushal?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
most welcome. Ragni says, excellent answer. Thank you so much, Ragni Mataji. Akshat Mukashi. Prabhuji, one question. My parents never owned me. They let me free. But should they chastise me so that I can not walk in wrong direction? Akshat, again, if you are above the age of 18, then please don't seek your parents' chastisement to do the right thing. You should be adult enough to do the right thing. One thing I've, my years of Krishna consciousness mentoring people, one thing I've realized is, first, we need to grow up as adults. Our age kind of goes past 18, but our mindset stays as a kid. So it's important, especially us Indians who are highly protected by our parents. So first of all, understand that you have to act like an adult. You don't need someone to beat you into shape and tell you, hey, this is wrong, this is right. You should know what is wrong, what is right. Both from a legal perspective, from a social perspective, and from a spiritual perspective. You should know what is right and wrong, and act accordingly. Parents don't have to beat the shit out of you for that to happen. They don't need to tell you also. Yes, if your parents are your spiritual master, if they're your shiksha guru, if they're your diksha guru, if they're your spiritual mentor, then definitely they should discipline you, because in spirituality you're a kid, because none of us have come to spirituality at the age of 5, which Prahlad Maharaj did, right? So all of us are new to spirituality. So as spirituality, as far as that is concerned, we are all infants, right? So there, somebody who's guiding you through the process can chastise you, correct you, and all of that. But as far as life is concerned, hey, you've gone through college, you've gone through education system, you shouldn't need to be chastised. I hope that's clear, the difference between
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Cool. Okay, anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move to the, let's see. Sanjeev Prabhu has a question. Prabhuji, sometimes situations like family members see I'm spending more time in bhakti, even if they are good-hearted and God believer. Any guidance here, as I want to serve them, which I try most of the time? I'm not sure what your question is. Sometimes situations like family members see.
Yeah, Prabhuji, just to be very clear, like for example, in the morning time, because of some office work, I'm not able to complete my chanting in the morning. I have to do it in the evening. So if I spend half an hour more in the evening, they see that this time should be spent like with kids or with some other meaningful purpose, homework and all those things. So because of office work, I was like awake whole night because of some office urgent work. I have that kind of my job opportunities. So these things generally crop up. I know I respect them. I want to serve them, but still certain situations which I try to avoid, but it is unavoidable sometimes. So any guidance, please.
Yeah. It is very difficult to manage your time as a grihastha, as a married person with kids, uh, but it is a requirement, because if you want to do your sadhana and married life together, you have very little time to waste. So you need to make sure that chanting is taken care of without hurting family. So there should be at least 2 hours minimum of family time every day, right? That kids should feel that there is a father, not like, oh, that's a mystery uncle that I don't know. Having said that, so kids go to bed. Maybe you can chant if you have rounds that are left from the morning. You can chant after the kids go to sleep, or early in the morning, etc. So make sure that there is a fine balance. That you are giving to your family. It is a requirement, because otherwise your kids will grow up hating Krishna consciousness. They will think, oh, because of chanting, my father doesn't spend time with me, so I will never chant. I will never let my kids chant also. And that has happened in the past. Devotees have ignored their kids, and the kids grow up hating Krishna consciousness as a result. So try to make sure that doesn't happen. So allot your
Yes,
time in such a way that your kids, they have you when they go to sleep, then you can do remaining part of your devotional service. Might be
yes, Prabhuji.
difficult,
Point
but
taken.
that's
Yeah.
all you have.
No, no, I will try, Prabhuji. Thanks for your guidance. I'll try to
Sure.
avoid the family time and do my things in my own time. Yeah. Thanks,
Hmm.
Prabhuji.
Most welcome. Hare Krishna. Okay. All right. No other questions. Moving on. Hmm. 7. Anybody wants to read text 7?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll read it. Yoga yukto visudatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarva bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
Okay. Mataji, can you also read the next verse?
Yes, Prabhuji. नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मनेयत तत्त्ववित् पश्यान् सर्वान् स्पर्शन् जिग्रहान् अस्नान् गच्छन् स्वापन् स्वसन् प्रलापन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषान् निमिषान् अपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तान्त इति धारयन्. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So Srila Prabhupada is a great example of that. Prabhupada never had anybody who didn't like him. They might not have liked his philosophy, or they might not liked the way he spoke, but they liked him. Prabhupada never had anybody who didn't like him as a person. Because what happens is when your senses are controlled, you're not a selfish person, you're not trying to hurt anyone. Like Prabhupada, he would be very clear and bold in his speech. He would be like, the people who are, for example, atheists, he would call them fools and rascals, right? And really important, harsh words. But then he's like, I'm not saying it. Krishna is saying it. He's calling Mudha. And Mudha in English is rascal or a fool. So, but Prabhupada, he would say, and he would laugh, and nobody would mind anything because he didn't have any malice in his heart. One time I saw this video, it was in Chicago actually. Prabhupada was sitting on the floor with the press reporter who was also sitting on the floor and asking Prabhupada a lot of questions. And there was a Vyasasan, like a nice Singhasan next to him. And this reporter was saying, so Srila Prabhupada, how many cars do you have? Prabhupada said, oh, I have so many cars. I just came from Germany. In our Germany temple, we have not only cars, we have buses, we have cars for preaching, we have trucks, we have all kinds of vehicles. Chicago temple also, we have so many cars, so many temples, so many cars. And she's like, oh, so many cars. Prabhupada said, in fact, Krishna provides everything. And he started glorifying how Krishna just provides. And he's like, and then she's like, but you're a sannyasi, you're supposed to have given up everything, how come all this? And Prabhupada said, yeah, that's because you think like that. And he explained the philosophy. And then he said, funny statement. He's like, I should be sitting on that throne over there. But I'm sitting on the floor here with you because you're envious. You'll see me on the throne and you won't like it. And Prabhupada started laughing. And this girl, this press reporter, she was laughing also with Prabhupada because it's true. People are envious. Another time, Srila Prabhupada was, it was summertime in Los Angeles. There's an outside area in the temple. Prabhupada was just sitting there shirtless. It was very hot. So some devotees were doing chamara, fanning him with the chamara, very royal way. And Prabhupada was speaking about Krishna. And there was somebody on the road walking by. And they walked by and they looked at Prabhupada and, they came back. Like, what is going on here? And they walked inside. Americans, they don't like this whole hierarchy thing. So this gentleman walks in and tells Prabhupada, what is he doing to you? Prabhupada says, he's fanning me. He said, why is he fanning you? Prabhupada said, because it's hot. And it's that simple. It's like, he's fanning me because it's hot. And the man was like, okay, what do you say now? There is nothing. Because in Prabhupada's heart, he's not feeling proud, like, oh, I'm a Jagat Guru, and so such and such person is fanning me. There's no ego talking. Prabhupada is just very clear that, oh, it's hot, he's fanning me, that's it. And the man didn't have anything to say. He sat down and started listening to Prabhupada's Krishna Katha. And Prabhupada also was so kind, he actually answered such arrogant person. The point is, person whose senses are controlled, that means anger is controlled, tongue is controlled, belly is controlled, genitals are controlled, right? Such a person doesn't have enemies because they don't carry that malice in the heart. They're not envious of other people, so other people also don't feel that negativity towards them. When Shukadev Goswami, who narrated the Srimad Bhagavatam, so Shukadev Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is supposed to be an incarnation of Krishna who compiled all the Vedas. They didn't write, but compiled all the Vedas into written form. So Vyasadeva's son, Shukadev Goswami, he was in mother's womb for a very long time. Several years he was in his mother's womb because he wouldn't come out into the material world. But finally, he decided to come out. And as soon as he came out, he was extremely renounced from the world and he had heard spiritual discourses. So he was born a pure devotee, right? So Shukadev Goswami, as soon as he was born, he started walking and he was naked completely. And he was a young man. He was a teenager who was extremely well built, very attractive, and he was walking naked. And his father, Vyasadeva, was running after Shukadev Goswami. Please come back, my son, don't leave home, come back. And he was just renounced and he was leaving home. And as he was walking and Vyasadeva running behind him, there was this lake, you can say, where women were bathing. And the women were also naked and they were bathing. And when Shukadev Goswami walked by, they didn't feel any shame. They didn't feel like they had to cover themselves. But as soon as Vyasadeva, who was much older, person, as he was walking by or running by, all the women covered themselves because they felt ashamed in front of Vyasadeva. Now, this is defined that way because, again, showcasing the purity of Shukadeva Goswami, who is an attractive young man, although naked, does not invoke shame in women because they don't feel that in him, the lust in him, right? But, even though we shouldn't say that about Vyasadeva, not like he has lust, but still he is Vyasadeva, and these women, they felt they should cover themselves in front of him. So the point is, when you're a pure devotee, you don't carry malice, you don't carry lust, greed, envy, pride, all of that in your heart. And being a God conscious person, people see that in you. They have the ability to pick up that sense. I remember one devotee who was into Hollywood movies and action scenes. He was an action scene, but not a movie star. He was like a side kind of a role person, but a fighter by profession. So I asked him, I said, Prabhu, you saw Srila Prabhupada, and he's a very tall, broad-shouldered, big guy. Like he'll double my size both ways, height as well as width. So I said, oh, Prabhu, tell me about Srila Prabhupada. How was your interaction with Srila Prabhupada? And he said, oh, when I saw Prabhupada, it was at an airport. We went to receive Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, I thought, we had heard about Prabhupada, great stature, very grave, spiritual master of the whole world, all that. And we expected Srila Prabhupada to be tall and big and all that. But when Prabhupada came out and he pointed at me, he said, he was your height. He was maybe shorter than you. I'm a short person. For those of you who have never seen me in person, I'm a short person. So he said, he was probably shorter than you. But his stature was so tall. And this man is like 6'3" or 6'4". He said, we fell to the ground without even knowing that we're supposed to pay Dandavat Pranam to a pure devotee. We just all fell to the ground and we had tears in our eyes because Srila Prabhupada just represented Krishna so strongly, that his presence was so strong. We were all chanting and dancing, Hare Krishna, and as soon as Prabhupada came out of the airport, we just saw him and we all just crashed on the ground and we had tears, and people couldn't get up for almost a minute. They were so affected by Prabhupada's presence. He had such a strong, pure devotee presence. And again, that goes to show you that what it is like to interact with a pure personality, right? People can perceive it. And later on, they heard that, oh, this is how you actually respect a pure devotee. You offer Dandavat Pranam. You fall on the floor flat and offer your respects. But without even knowing, they were already offering respects just by Srila Prabhupada's gigantic stature. The physical height didn't matter. It was his stature that already commanded that level of respect. Even Srila Prabhupada, when he would walk by the near east side of New York City, where all the hippies were, the druggies were, many times he would walk down the street, early days of ISKCON, even before forming ISKCON, right? There'd be hippies who are drugged up, lying on the street, or alcohol, completely drunkards lying on the street. But when Prabhupada would walk, they would move and make way for him. They would bow down to Srila Prabhupada because they felt this person is different from everyone out there. He has something, some magical spark. So that's the beauty of Krishna's attractiveness acting through his pure devotees. The purer you are, the more Krishna's attractiveness acts through you, and it invokes that respect out of people. Like, wow, this is a special person, right? So one who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So Prabhupada was building temples. He was dealing with millions and millions of dollars, right? So much book distribution happening. So many beautiful temples were being built. Vrindavan, Juhu temple, Mayapur temple, But Prabhupada, for himself, he could be wearing a torn uttariya and that was fine with him. He could be sleeping in a mud hut with mosquitoes biting him. That's fine with him. Everything for Krishna, nothing for me. But you see Babas today, Any Tom, Dick, and Harry Baba is not less than 1,000 crores in net worth. And they have bulletproof cars, and they have all kinds of majestic ways of dealing with themselves. But Srila Prabhupada was like, nobody even knew Srila Prabhupada. I mean, even today, outside ISKCON, most people don't know Srila Prabhupada. Most people know, ISKCON, Hare Krishnas, they're about Krishna consciousness, right? They're about Bhagavad Gita, they're about Vedic Vaishnava lifestyle. But Prabhupada is not too well known. And that's by design. Srila Prabhupada never even cared to glorify himself. He was like, Krishna should be in the center, right? But we glorify Srila Prabhupada. We as future generations, we glorify for the wonderful things he did. And that's Krishna's competition with his devotee. His devotee always wants to glorify him, and Krishna competes with his devotee to glorify his devotee, right? By having other devotees glorify him. So it's always the case. The devotees think, I don't need any glorification. My dear Krishna, I want you to be glorified. And Krishna is like, no, I want you to be glorified. And there's always a transcendental battle going on between devotees and Krishna, where both sides are trying to glorify each other. So 8-9, let's see if I have time. 8-9 says that a person in divine consciousness or Krishna consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing one's eyes, he always knows that the only material senses are engaged and their objects, and that he's aloof from them. So many times if you have attended my webinars, you might have heard me say, separate the behavior from the person. Somebody might have said something harsh to you, and you might feel hurt, and you might say harsh back. What happens is you're identifying the person with that behavior. But the soul is different from the body and the mind. So if you understand that the person, the soul, pure devotee of Krishna, we are all pure devotees of Krishna, by the way, at the core. But unfortunately, because we are in contact with material nature, we have a body, and we have a mind, and we have forgotten Krishna, and all we know is what we see around us, material knowledge, which is ignorance. And with that, we are trying to be happy, but we're never happy because we don't know about the soul. But once the soul is touched, we are happy. So a person who is in knowledge, in Krishna consciousness, understands this principle and understands that whatever I'm doing with the bodily activities is separate from who I am, right? So genetics don't matter as much. If you have bad habits, that doesn't matter as much. All of that will go away. Many people are like, oh, I smoke, oh, I do this, oh, I eat this. Don't worry, just become Krishna conscious. It'll all go away, right? Many people spend so much money trying to get out of addictions like drugs and things like that. With Krishna consciousness, by Krishna's mercy, I've helped so many people get out of those kinds of addictions for free. Doesn't cost you anything. Just become Krishna conscious. Just chant Hare Krishna, follow the 4 regulative principles, little bit of philosophy, and buy Krishna Prasadam, dance and chant in Krishna Kirtan, and you're happy. It changes you. It transforms you, takes away all the attachments and addictions and the things that are from the material world, and empowers you spiritually, right? That's the reality. That's what is real. Everything else is but illusion, right? All right. I'll pause here and see if there's any questions from your side.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Could you once again break down verses 8 and 9 for me?
Sure. So it says a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching. So you're engaged in using your body, your senses, in doing mundane things that everybody else does. But knowing within yourself that he actually does nothing at all. That you're not doing, I mean, it's there, but you're different from this body. So the spiritual aspect and the material aspect, there's a clear distinction between the two. The person and the body, there's a difference between the two. The person and the mind, there's a difference between the two. For example, the mind says, I desire blah. And you'll be like, interesting how the mind works. The reason why you're able to see the mind as a third person is because you're a third person. You're not the mind, you're not the body, you are a soul. Right? And as a result, you're able to observe as a soul, you're able to observe how the mind tricks you, how the mind desires, how the mind is jumping from one bandwagon to another bandwagon, one desire to another desire. Okay, I got the iPhone, now I want the Audi. Now I got the Audi, now I want the private jet. Oh, I got the private jet, now I want something else, space travel, whatever, right? It never ends. So the point is, you're able to observe it. When you can observe it, then you can actually control it, right? But that requires for you to have the knowledge that you're not the mind, you're not the body, you are a separate entity. Does it help, Yogesh Prabhu? Okay.
And adding to that, so you had said that, separate the person from their behavior. So how do you address their behavior? So let us say, someone comes off offensive and you know that they are being harsh to you. And then at the same time, you also know that it is actually not the person who is doing it. It is their behavior due to some, something that's going on in their mind. So how do you address those sort of situations?
Absolutely. And that's when you are thoughtful, right? So that's the difference between us and others. So as a thoughtful person, you're like, this is not who you are. Is everything okay at home? You seem upset. I feel a little hurt by your behavior. Is there any way that I can make you feel better? Because I clearly know you're not this person. This is not how you generally interact, but you are interacting. And that means there's something going on. I have done that many times. When I see somebody that I love dearly acting in a certain way, I'm like, hey, is everything all right? Is your health okay? Are you having some stress issues? And lo and behold, is always the answer, like, oh no, I'm having such a bad day today. Oh, I'm this fight and that fight and this and that. But if I were to be like, oh, you called me a rascal, oh, you're a fool, number one, it would just escalate. Versus you have understanding that people talk to each other and they talk in a way that both are understanding of each other's position. I feel hurt. Oh, I'm so sorry you feel hurt. Actually, I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm having a bad day and the anger just came out on you. Right?
Okay. So it would be more like, first differentiating what the behavior and the personality is and the person is, and then you acknowledge what the person is going through. Third, you try to find out what the person would want to, and fourth, you just, reciprocate whatever they are feeling. So.
Correct. In fact, I would recommend, if you want to know more about this, I've written a whole article in 2015 on aveloroy.com. It's called How to Handle Bad Bosses or Difficult People, something like that. How to handle difficult people. And I've gone through I statements. I've gone through an entire thing. But the crux of the matter is watch the other person, pause before you react, go through data points in your mind that is this person really this person? Is he or she always like this? Or in the history, this person has been kind and nice and compassionate and respectful. And this is an anomaly. If it is an anomaly, then let's treat it like an anomaly and not like this is the end all be all. And forget about all the good things this person has done. And if it is that this person is compulsively abusive, then let's avoid this person and not be around this person, because there's a negative, compulsively bad person. So I want to be away from such a negative person.
And I think this kind of videos, if you can make it, I'm telling you, this will make a very, very different impact. इसमें नाम में थोड़ा अगर ऊपर
विभूति माता जी, I think
solution partners ऐसा कुछ.
Anyway, I think that was a mistake. Anyway, I was like, somebody's talking to me. But yeah, so hit the pause button, go through the data points, see if the person is generally like this or like this. If he is a nice person, treat with him nicely. If he's not a nice person, avoid him and move on with life. But never or not never, but try not to get into argument where you are blame gaming the other person. Always speak in I statements that I feel hurt by your behavior. This is not what I expected. Or I feel disrespected at this time. Or I feel angry. I feel upset. Because no one has a right to tell you how you should feel. Right? No one has a right to tell you how you should feel. You should feel the way, but if you tell others how they should feel, that's wrong. But you should always be able to express how you feel. And that calms the situation down.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Bhagavad.
Sure. What are the 4 regular principles? Okay, so 2 people have answered that already. All right. One thing I want to say is, let's see if she is here. Puja Mataji is here. So, one of our very sincere devotees, she lost her father recently, and I would request all of you to, if you can kindly pray, chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Puja Mataji's father who recently passed away, so that whatever the next destination Krishna has in mind can be a wonderful destination, and he can be in a wonderful state, and go one level above in his journey to Krishna's lotus feet. So I will certainly pray, and I request all of you to also pray for Puja Mataji's father, if that's possible for you. I'll just chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and wherever you are, you can also chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare.
Hare Hare. All right. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I will take your leave. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a good night.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Babuji. Hare Krishna.